Okay, we are live. Happy Monday, everyone. We normally do these on Tuesdays, but happy Monday, everyone. I hope everyone had a great weekend. I'm Avery Bradford. I'm head of programming events for Female Founder Collective, the 10th House, and the North, which hopefully we'll be able to talk about all three today because we have the CEO and co-founders of all three here with us today. Before we get into all of those things, I want to give you a brief intro. I'm going to keep these brief because you probably know these people very well. I'm going to start off with Alison Wyatt. Alison Wyatt is our CEO and co-founder of the 10th House, the North, which is our private advisory platform. So you can set up one-on-one calls with mentors who are CMOs, CFOs, COOs, people who are from companies like Microsoft and the Teslas of the world, and just people who you would pay millions of dollars probably to have a dinner with, you can set up a one-on-one call with through the North. And then she's also the CEO of Female Founder Collective. She, in addition to all three of those things, is a mother and an angel investor in some of your favorite companies. And then we also have Rebecca Minkoff here with us today, who is our co-founder. So she's the co-founder of the 10th House and FFC, Female Founder Collective. She's a creator and a designer for Namesake brand, which we'll be talking about today. She is an author, a podcaster, a mother, amongst many other things. So I'm very excited to chat with them both today, mainly about their different areas of expertise. So when you all RSVP today, you had the option to send in a question. We had over 150 questions submitted, and I'm lucky enough to be able to have these conversations with Ali and Rebecca about once a quarter. And we had some new questions sent in that I'm really excited to dive into. But before we do that, if you have questions about the 10th House, which you'll hear us talk about today, check out the comments section below. I posted a link inside there, but our new tech cohort is now open. And if you didn't see all of the wonderful things that we did at New York Tech Week, definitely go to our Instagram page. But some very transformational conversations happened there, hosted by both Ali and Rebecca. And June 18th is the last day to apply for that tech cohort. So if you want more conversations like that held at New York Tech Week and today, what networking opportunities, investment conversations. We have a pitch event for members happening very soon, actually tomorrow, and we have those often. Check out the 10th House. If you have questions about it, pop it inside of the chat. But speaking of your questions, I'm going to go through those today, and you will probably hear me shout out your name. So if you hear me shout you out, pop in the comment section and say, hey, that question's for me. So happy you answered it, because we're all in this conversation together. So the first question is for you, Rebecca, and it's from Nancy. And Nancy asks, how did you finance and market your first collection for Rebecca Minkoff brand? I'm going to unmute you. Oh, actually, it says I can't unmute you. You have to unmute yourself for some reason.
All right, I'm unmuted. I think things have worked very differently then. My first collection was based on an order I got for 12 units, and I put them on a cash advance credit card that my father co-signed, but was not going to pay the bills. He just got it open for me. I was responsible for the bills. So to be honest, I had no idea how I was going to pay that back. But when the store sent me the check, I promptly paid that bill off. And I did that a few times, but I was getting deeper and deeper into a card that I couldn't figure out how to keep that going. And that's when I called my brother, and he started loaning me money initially until he reached a level of discomfort after mortgaging his house and maxing out his Amex. I'd say that was probably when we were hitting the $250,000 to $400,000 mark. And when we've hit 500,000 in sales, that's when we got someone called a factor. So within the fashion industry, these are sort of like private banks that loan based on the credit of whoever's purchasing. And they give you like 80% of the funds up front, and then they collect them for you, which is really nice when you're dealing with big box department stores. And then they take a fee off of that. So that's how we really were able to scale and bridge that gap with producing the bags.
Amazing. So it all started with a credit card. And I didn't know that figure, 12 orders, is really what started the Rebecca Minkoff brand.
They ordered 12 pieces, yes.
Wow. That's amazing. And now it's been how many years?
We're approaching 20. We're going to start celebrating in September.
Oh my gosh, how exciting. Congratulations.
Yeah,
and speaking of funding, and it's odd that you just said that, Rebecca, you kind of had your own friends and family round without actually doing it officially. And this next question, Ali, is for you, which is about friends and family. And this one's from Siobhan. And she says, Ali, what is the best way to approach a friends and family fundraising round? And can you, for listeners who maybe don't know what that is, explain what that is? And you're on mute as well.
Sorry, I was trying to recenter my screen in order to find my unmute button. Yes. So friends and family round, it's a definition that effectively is pre-seed, pre-seed, in other words. And it basically just means not institutional capital. So you're bringing in angels. It's not always friends and family. So you might say to yourself, like, I don't have friends and family that could help me raise $500,000. That's okay. There are probably friends of friends and family that can. It could be as small or as big as you want it to be. I don't recommend making it too small because it's going to be a lot more work than it's actually worth. In terms of the terms, those can be anything from, you can go online and get a safe note, which was created with the intention of being able to defer the price of the company itself and any valuation for investors, because you're so early, it's almost impossible to do, right? So it's a really investor and founder friendly way of just going to market and saying, this is what we have. Investors will be familiar with it. And there's not a whole lot of back and forth that you'll have to have with any sort of attorneys, which is great because those would be additional fees. So it's a really great way of being able to go to market. And a lot of founders are starting to do founder-led SPVs, so special purpose vehicles. And that's can be done on a platform like Carta or Sidecar. And you can go on and you make it super easy for investors to invest in your company. I would caution you to try to make sure that you have a signed agreement from them that they are able and accredited as an angel investor, and that actually you can look it up to see the exact terms. I don't have them right off the top of my head, but that's either based off of your income or your net worth. So it's a really great way to get people involved that maybe aren't even known as angel investors. That's something else to keep in mind, is that you can go out and raise money via 5K checks or $2,500 checks. If you're trying to raise 200K, yes, it'll take a lot of them, but a special purpose vehicle enables you to not have to talk to every single one of those people on your cap table. And it's more a body of people. So every time you do go back to them, you can go back to them as a group as opposed to an individual as well. So I love those. And hopefully that helps with just some of the ways that you can go about raising friends and family.
Yeah, would you say, you mentioned at the top that most people won't have actual friends and family who they can rely on during this round. Would you say SPVs are the best channel to go if that's the case for you?
I would encourage, if you can find somebody that wants to invest in you, say it's a friend of a friend, I would typically try to find somebody that is in your industry and has some sort of expertise, because the other thing is you can get those people on your advisory board, and that is so much value. So they can sort of double down on their stake in your business by having advisory shares, but also having investment shares. And then if they lead an SPV, they'll also get carry on that, meaning like whatever profit they make on the money that you make as a business, they get to take home, which is nice. But if they can actually lead the SPV for you, it takes a lot of work off of your shoulders, and it also gives sort of credentials to and accreditation to your business inherently. And again, the platforms that are out there make it way easier to do that. Check out Sidecar, check out Carta, because they now have their way of doing it. And the nice thing with Carta is all the shares of your company automatically get updated. They send out everything to investors. So it's just so turnkey for both parties, the founder and the investors alike.
Super helpful. And if anyone listening is interested in learning more about either one of those platforms, we do have a couple of resources where we discuss them. So I encourage you to check that out, especially if you're a member of the 10th house, so you'll get access to those. But the next couple of questions I'll kind of put under the conversation of benchmarks. And one of the things that people look for is traction, and a big part of that now is social media. And Rebecca, this next question is for you, and that's from Jessica. It says, Rebecca, with social media and specifically organic posts being such an important tactic and more favorable over paid media, how do you measure success? Is it followers? Is it growth? Is it engagement? What are your personal benchmarks?
It depends who's managing the platform. We've had different people at different times say, oh, engagement doesn't matter. It's saved photos. And then it was, how much sales are you doing on Instagram? And no one cared about engagement or growth. They cared about sales. Yeah. And I finally, and I'm willing to die on this hill, I said, your followers better fucking grow and you better have great engagement. Because the people are not still shopping in a huge way on Instagram. At least, when you're spending $200 to $400, I think most people want to go to their desktop to complete that purchase. So I have now tasked my team. I said, if you don't figure out how to grow us, we're in trouble. And I don't care how many people save the photo. What do you do to save photo? You know how many photos and recipes I've saved that I never go back to? About 600. So I think that
like all of mine I've never gone back to.
Right? I'm always like, oh, I'm going to do this in the weekend with my child. I just need beef gelatin. And then I never do it. So I think that, as a brand, it's harder because we know consumers like people and personalities. And so how do you entice someone to want to follow you as a brand? And it's that fine line between personal and storytelling. And so I think when you can figure that out, then you'll have growth.
Amazing. That's super helpful. And I see some questions coming in, by the way. Keep them coming. If we have time for live questions at the end, I will answer them. This next one is for you, Allie, continuing the benchmark conversation. It's from Jill. Jill says, is there a general revenue amount young brands should be making before approaching investors, specifically angel investors?
So angel investors, it's going to be so case by case, but generally, no. I would just have a very clear sense of here's my traction. Or if you're not even making revenue yet, a lot of angels will invest in you off of a deck plus a wait list, right? Or pre-sales or some sort of indication that you have product market fit and people are going to buy this. You should always have that. The email list size that you have is also a huge indicator of success for consumer businesses. The amount of followers you have and how you engage with those. In my early days of angel investing, that was like the first way I would find out about companies I would want to invest in is like, who's doing a really great job cultivating community on social? Because I really believed that the future of being able to do well in consumer was your ability to cultivate and connect with your community. So I would say that generally for institutional, and you may have heard this, and maybe that's why you asked about angels. Right now for consumer, so many of the funds that I talk to, they want to see at least $1 million of revenue. So that's a good sort of benchmark to know.
You mentioned that you used to think that a big, tracker was that if they had the engagement within their community, that it was a good company to invest in. Do you still believe that today?
Yes, but I think now it's table stakes, right? Versus then it was more of a differentiator for certain brands. So, I think there's definitely still brands that do better than others, but also socials become so crowded that can't be your only strategy. And now is it TikTok over Instagram, right? And as Rebecca was talking about, it's like how much of the shopping is actually taking place inside of Instagram. I think paid is so important now as part of your organics. Like it's the combination of the two. So I think it's a little bit harder to solely rely on size because it's just now there's so much parity amongst brands.
Yeah, very fair. And Emma, I see your comment. Says, yes, I love the idea of showing indicators of product market fit. Lily, I see your comment about wanting to see those resources. I'll post a comment in right after this event. So keep your eye there. And then on that same note, so this next question is actually for both of you, and that's from Lily, and that is, how do you start to get media attention when you are a small startup? My product is bright and bold and has a story, but I don't know how to pitch podcasts, blogs, etc., and probably have a small budget, just assuming, based on some of the verbiage there. But what are your recommendations, Rebecca? We'll start with you.
I would say the nice part about pitching media is you don't need a big budget unless you're going to be gifting the product itself. And there are media lists you can buy. I think good old fashioned 6 degrees of separation. Do you know anyone who could make introductions for you? Normally, also, I guess the good and the bad about the consolidation in the media landscape is once you learn one person's email at that corporation, you got the key to the kingdom and you can basically go on LinkedIn and pitch everyone else. But I think not just sending an email to their inbox, getting creative. Do you send something to them? Do you do some research on who they are and what they love and send a more thoughtful note? I think the people and the brands that can get that kind of attention will get better results. You also have to know is that these people now all have 5 jobs, not just one. And so the more you can sort of give them something that they can just tie a bow and then send it out is easier. So if you have product photography already done, if you have, paid great editorial with usage rights already done, it just makes it so much easier for them to slot that in. And I would say if you don't have time for that, but you have the budget, hiring an agency can also in that space can also really be helpful in getting those early introductions.
Yeah, that's super helpful. Doing some of their work for them seems to be something that could be.
Sadly, that's the case.
Yeah. What about you, Allie? Anything you would add to that?
I definitely agree on, it's like these journalists probably get thousands of emails a day. Like they are getting so much. And so Rebecca's right. I used to sit on the media side, so I got to see how companies would filter, and we had advertisers where I'm like, guys, please, I need you to give a little bit more love or attention to this particular retailer or brand. And the editors would always be like, I need them to make it easy for me. I want things on white backdrops that are easy to silhouette that I can just pull right into whatever my layout looks like. If it is product integration, make sure that you know when certain gift guides are happening, right? That yours might be a great fit for. So like the date for Goop was always, I think we would drop it on 11/14. So find out when those deadlines are for when they have to have all the product in. The other thing is, like Rebecca said, definitely just establish as much sort of one-on-one relationships as you possibly can. Because again, they're getting so many emails. You want to be an email that they recognize the name. And I do think while PR agencies, not all are created equal, there's some that are just so incredible. But even with PR agencies, their ability to help you is going to be so much better amplified if you have direct relationships as well. So figure out people's beat, send product if you can. So often it does get into the right hands, and get personalized as well and make it easy for them.
Yeah, even from a programming perspective, we'll get a lot of inbound inquiries, and it's like right now we're doing a lot for tech founders, and I'm getting pitches that are things that are just not related to what our founders need at the moment. And then you just forget about it because it was the wrong time. But with just a second of research on even our LinkedIn or Instagram, they could have known that and avoided that timing. And I want to shout out Lily. She said, I actually just did that with Food 52, ended up talking to the lead buyer, and I'm sending them a sample. So congratulations, Lily.
Avery, the other thing I would say is you can't just pitch once and hope it goes. Editors are working on different stories, determined by different ad placements, different seasons, times of year. For instance, Christmas in July, long lead editors are working on Christmas in July. So you also have to know that this is a constant thing that you might be pitching, and you just never know when it's going to be right.
Yeah, that's very true. Okay, this next one is from Kelly. And again, for both of you, Kelly says, for Rebecca and Allie, I am in the early first 3 years of my business. All bills are paid, I'm in the black, and no full-time employees. When did you know it was time to scale, and how did you? in the early stages navigate that expansion. Rebecca, would love to start with you here. And then Allie, I would like to pass part 2 of her question to you.
Well, fucking tap yourself on the back. That's incredible. That's a rare thing to hear. I think you're ripe for expansion when you know how much bigger you could be, depending on who you hire to do that job. Like, what is your biggest time suck? That's not your biggest skill set. Sorry, that's a tongue twister. And who is that person? Is it email marketing? Is it customer service? Is it shipping? We knew it was a bad use of my time to be shipping product, which I did for many years, so to hire someone to help with that was a great load off my back and allowed me to focus on design. So I think once you've estimated that and knowing that you might go in the red for a little bit to make that new hire, but as long as you can forecast, by them doing this job, you can see revenues shoot back up, then you should be in a good spot.
Yeah, so there wasn't necessarily a revenue that you hit before you hired your first person. It was more time versus revenue.
We hired like an assistant for me right off, maybe 6 months in, because and the assistant wasn't like managing my calendar. She was going to the garment center to get the leather while I was going to get the hardware, so it was someone who could just run around and do everything you needed to do when you're making in the United States and buying everything. So it was more just like, how much money do you not want to make, Rebecca? And knowing that investment will pay off long term.
Yeah, smart. And this is part 2, which you sort of just answered this, Rebecca. So Allie, from an FFC perspective, who was your first employee? What was their role? And looking back on it now, would any of that change?
Well, I would say our first employee, it was really more a generalist, right? Like, and everybody in the beginning of the business is doing everything, but it's exactly what Rebecca said, where it's like, what is the stuff that, like, make sure you know what your superpower is as a founder, and then make sure you can clear the field so that you can do that as much as possible. So if you're like, I'm really good at sales, or I'm really good at marketing, or I'm really good at product development, and you're spending a ton of time, like Rebecca said, she was shipping. She was, that maybe you're spending so much time on your calendar. Like, if you're sitting there doing that stuff, hire somebody else to do it, because your business, the growth you will see in your business as a result of you doing the stuff that you're really good at is going to be exponential. I've seen it every single time. And it's like, it's a very scary thing. And you sort of feel like you might have a mini heart attack when you make that initial hire. And you're like, I really hope I can continue to pay for this person, or one day pay myself as well, because I'm hiring this person and they're going to take my salary. But it almost always comes back around. So, I would be confident in that.
This question wasn't on here, but just you bringing that up, Allie, I'm curious what you both think the other person's superpower is as a co-founder. And this could be, on any side of things. Allie, from your perspective, Rebecca, either with FFC or with Rebecca Minkoff brand, what you see as the other person's superpower. Throwing that out of left field. I know that wasn't on the list of questions.
Sorry, like what we literally see in each other's superpower, or what you want to see in a theoretical person's superpower?
What you see as Allie's superpower as CEO and co-founder of FFC.
May I start?
Yeah, sure.
So with Rebecca, I find she's incredible at being able to create exposure and brand awareness with almost nothing. Like, she comes from a full bootstrapper's mindset of like just being able to be super scrappy and looking at creative ways to grow without spending a lot of money. She's really amazing at creating relationships from a PR perspective, at being forward facing and articulating the vision and mission. Whereas, like, I do prefer to kind of be behind the screen. So I would say, like, a lot of the out in front, communicating the brand, creating relationships, as well as as being super scrappy and great at marketing.
Thanks, friend.
What about you, Rebecca? What do you think?
So I think that since I've come from this bootstrapped, we have nothing mindset, I sometimes am like a bull in a china shop and want to get things done and decide fast, because if we don't, we're going to lose this opportunity. And Allie is very thoughtful and strategic. And that is a very good counterpoint to my like panic, almost like, and she's incredible at finding talent. Case in point is you, Avery, and our incredible team at FFC, and really being a great manager of that talent. And I think that that's a very rare skill set these days. There are a lot of terrible, terrible leaders and managers, and I think, you know, when you're looking for who to hire, it's like finding a needle in a haystack, and I feel like Allie's exceptional at that. And I also think just with organization, and like I couldn't be the CEO of FFC. Like I wouldn't even know how to even think with it. So she's an incredible CEO in that she understands all the different pieces and parts and how they all work together, and just stuff I would never think of. I'm like, oh, I never would have thought of that. And that's what a good CEO does.
Yeah, I would have to agree. I think it's nice to hear the way you two describe each other, because as a team member, I probably would have said those same exact things about both of you. So
Love
just validate that.
Thank you.
Okay, this next one is from Mila, and that's for Rebecca. And this is a part 2 question because we got a similar one in the chat. And Mila asks you, Rebecca, I'm working on the go-to-market strategy for an in-store outfit generator. I would love to hear your experience with experimenting with and adopting new tech within the fashion industry. Very relevant conversation, just knowing we're talking a lot to tech founders right now.
So what I would say is we didn't have budget to develop our technology for our stores. We leaned on partners who did and who wanted the win of having figured it out. So for our stores, we had partnered with eBay. They had an innovation team at the time. And so they paid for the tech. They built it to our specs and what we wanted. So if you have the funds, great. If you don't, I would say, you know, are there like-minded partners who need that win? And they can power it for you, and then you guys can both get the earned media and future clients from it. The innovation team eventually disbanded, but they then had their core team leave and start a company that we also invested in personally, that went on to do Ralph Lauren stores and a bunch of other big projects because of what we did with them. So don't discount what you're offering and bringing it to market for those who might need, you know, the sexier person at the front with the idea. And then I would just say, obviously, it's technology. It's fraught with lots of issues. And just to make sure that you are really solving a pain point, I've met a lot of people recently who, when a company is faced with investing, they're going to cut the things that they don't understand or that seem too hard. You know, the things that are getting the check mark from us are like, does it plug into Shopify? Can we turn it on? Does it mess up anything after we've done some testing? Great. That's what gets approved. Anything that's a longer conversation is a nightmare for brands right now when we're just focused on trying to get sales. So just make sure that your idea, as good as you think your idea is, other people think is too.
Yeah. In the eBay example, did you all play a role in ultimately how that looked, or did they come to you with a complete idea and that's exactly how it was executed?
How it went is my brother was in the mall in San Francisco and saw a screen that they did for, I believe, another brand, and went to them and said, that was cool, but here's my idea for something way bigger and way better. And so the brainchild of that whole store was really my brother, but that's how it kind of began. And they loved his idea so much, and they were excited, and they had budget to innovate, that's what occurred.
It's very cool. I feel like you all have been, like at the Rebecca Minkoff brand, have always been very good about trying out tech.
Yeah.
I don't know what, just integrations. It's very cool to see that you're always willing to.
Yeah, I mean, you have to test, and you have to be willing to fail.
Mm-hmm. Oh, sorry, Allie, I cut you off. What were you going to say?
Oh no, I was just going to say, I would say the other side of it, just from an ability to monetize that partnership and cover off on all your costs. From a covering your cost standpoint, I would try to project out what the total revenue win could be for your partner. I think in today's day and age, like Rebecca's saying, for brands, they need to make money. But I also think it puts the onus on us when we are doing partnerships to go in actually pitching for a win-win, right? So ask a lot of questions, understand what good looks like, understand what their KPIs are. And if there's a brand out there and they have certain sales they need to make and gaps in their ability to get there, then maybe you can find a way to increase their conversion rate by a certain X percentage, and that translates to Y revenue. And maybe you can participate in that amount of revenue too, right? So when they win, you win too. So there's skin in the game. I always like to approach partnerships that way, and that way you're able to everybody feels good about it.
Yes, which is why we are working on a partnerships resource for the 10th house. So Allie is a fountain of knowledge when it comes to partnerships. I've gotten to sit on some calls with her, and it's incredible to see how she navigates that. So excited to put together that resource. Okay, we have time for a couple more questions. This next one is from Karen, again, for both of you. What tips do you have for getting early adapters for your business, specifically consumers? Rebecca, let's start with you.
I think that you should look at, there's a brand. There's someone knocking at my door. So let Allie take this because no one's supposed to be here right now. So sorry, 1 second, please, everybody.
I would say right now community is so important and like rewarding people, and the game is no longer about as many people as possible. I don't think it ever was, frankly. Now it's about how do I get as specific as possible of who I'm targeting. And then once I do get as specific as possible, understanding their lifestyle and their needs, and then rewarding for loyalty, right? Like there's so many great platforms now out there that allow for a deeper sense of connection, right? And your consumers want to connect with you. So you can have a broadcast channel on social. You can have a Substack. You can have Circle as the platform we use for our community. You can create a circle just around your brand where you bring in your top customers so that you have a way of connecting them and connecting with them and then rewarding them too for the amount of loyalty and engagement they have with your brand. So I think it's really all about leaning into that community piece and utilizing the connection and community platforms we have out there now versus the just broadcast ones.
Yeah. Love that advice. Rebecca?
So there's a Substack that was written about a brand called High Sport, and it literally lays out the most like pinpointed strategy of I got the pants on these 5 people and here's what happened.
Mm.
And not that you can get your brand or that those 5 people that they list is right, but it just goes about a thinking process that you find the right people that are the leaders of the thing that you want to push in your arena and look at what can happen. I would say the same thing about Drunk Elephant. Not round 2 with 9-year-olds on TikTok, but the first round, it was a very clear strategy. Who was using Drunk Elephant and why? I know personally that a lot of the people that were influencers were also investors and or were given equity and their desire to push it that much further. So I would say that you could, you might not have cash, but like, do you approach the thought leaders in that space with something more fruitful than just a kickback and how that can pay off in big ways?
And don't just, if you do put product on people, I also find sometimes brands will come to people and be like, I'd love for you to use my product, but it like sort of ends there, right? So they use it one time, maybe they post one time, like give them a way to engage with you and give them a really easy way to share a testimonial on why they love your product, right? Or like be like, we'll get a photographer to come and take edited images of you or like headshots of you, and be willing to give them stuff that they can then also use on their platforms. Don't make it too unclear on what you want.
Again, do part of the work for them.
Mhm.
You are going to go out of their way to help grow your business. They missed the name of the Substack. I'll look for it and I'll try to post a link.
High Sport is the name of the brand.
Oh, perfect. Thanks, Alan.
Like high in sport.
HI or HIGH?
HIGH.
Perfect. Okay, combining a couple of questions for you, Rebecca, and they are, do you have any advice for seasoned business owners who are struggling to scale? What are your best tips for staying in business long term?
I think that you have to figure out or relook at what was the product that got you that growth initially? What did it mean to that consumer then? We really saw growth when we took our bags. We dropped prices during the recession, and then we introduced a crossbody at $195 that no other brand that was our competitor at the time could figure out. It gave us 2 years of them trying to figure it out and us just really growing the brand. And so I think that when you're in that rut, it's like, what was the original vision? What was the original purpose, the vision, the product that launched you? What is that version now today? And how do you message that to your customer? And then I would say, can you focus on margin? Our sales for the last 2 years have been relatively flat, but our margin has increased by, I believe, eight points. And so you might not see the growth due to economic factors, but where you can, stop spending or be smarter about spend can make a huge difference in your business.
Very smart advice. Okay, Allie, this next one is for you from Alenka, and that is, as an angel investor, how do you decide who to invest in? You talked a little bit about community and social earlier, but that has evolved. So what does today look like?
So I would say that angel investing early stage is almost all about the founder, frankly, because you're going to find, and I'm sure a lot of you have already seen this, your business is going to pivot a million times. Maybe what the business started as will change. And so it's really about who's driving the ship, who is making decisions. How do you deal with things that get thrown your way that are challenges? How do you navigate around them? How do you get through them? And how are you communicating those things too with investors? Because I've seen there are founders that are willing to just, knock down every wall, but that same sort of trait also makes them super stubborn and unwilling to listen. And so knowing what to filter out versus what to let in from an advice perspective, as well as just, again, the general communication of founders. I think something that you can really show an investor how responsible you're going to be with their money and with your company is by sending regular updates, even before they've ever invested, or maybe they already said no to you. Who knows? They might say yes to you later. So sending them emails on, here's what's happening in the business. These are our wins. Here are some things we're working on that we would love help with. Because the other thing is the founders that know how to bring in their investors, their board of advisors, their board, those are the ones that are going to win, because you really can't do it alone. And if you know how to communicate and ask for help, you're going to see much greater chances for success. So it's really, to sort of summarize, it's somebody that is persistent and committed, but who's also really communicative about where they are in their business. They're transparent in that communication. It does not serve you or your investors to lie to your investors, because at the end of the day, your investors want to help. So showing that somehow upfront on how sort of on top of the business you are and on how transparent you will be, I think it's super helpful. And then the other thing is just sort of investment philosophy and business model, and making sure that it's sound, that there's a big enough industry. So total addressable market is TAM. Investors always want to make sure that that's big enough so that if you do want to scale, you have the opportunity to scale big enough. having a bold vision, right? Because people don't want to get behind a business that is going to be small. So if you are taking investors' dollars, they're going to want to see that you're going to grow their dollars. Because at the end of the day, it's about the transaction that happens, and that you're going to be a responsible and great partner for them.
Yeah, Karen has an interesting question. That is, what if you love the idea? So what if they have a big, bold vision and large TAM and great projections and traction and all of those things, but you don't love the founder? Would you invest?
No, because it's such an important relationship, honestly. And you should, by the way, as founders, you want investors that you want on your cap table, like that you enjoy having a conversation with, that you would sit down to dinner with and be excited about that, not somebody who's like not going to treat you well, who is going to pester you, or who is going to constantly sort of question your decisions. So it goes both ways, but you want to like each other.
Yeah, very fair. Okay, a couple more questions left. Rebecca, this one's from Christy, and that is, do you still have the ability to be creative? There are so many business decisions to make. If so, how do you stay creative and innovative?
I do. When we sold the business 2 years ago, most of the business decisions that I was involved with went away, which I do miss sometimes because it's fun and it's interesting. And so it really gave me the power to be creative and to just focus. Again, they took off all the stuff that I shouldn't be doing. And what do I do best? And, it's overseeing the design team, overseeing our marketing, PR, and events and social. And that's what I do best. That's where I am happiest. And so that's actually given me a lot more freedom to do that, which is not the case for a lot of people that sell their company. But I think when you decide you want to stay, you make yourself invaluable, and they see that you care. Sometimes they're like, stop caring as much, but I think that they would rather have that than someone who just checks out and is like, yeah, I'm going to cash my checks and show up when you need me. I think it's too personal for me to operate any differently.
Yeah, you mentioned PR and social and marketing and those side of things. Are those things that come naturally to you because you're really excited about them? Or are you doing research and you're subscribing to newsletters and checking Substacks? How do you stay in it?
The design part is something I've done, let's just say, for 25 years. As far as staying current, I rely deeply on the people that work for me, a lot of them a lot younger, to help me ensure that my ideas are relevant and fresh. And then what I see going on, who I'm following, I'll never sit here and give you a TikTok strategy. I'd love someone to tell me what it should be. But I think in the areas where we know we have the most traction, I have a newsletter on Substack. I read Substacks. I see that it was going towards fashion in a way when all these people lost their jobs in regular media and they needed somewhere to go and an outlet. So, I try and pick the places that make the most sense with that are just different versions of what used to be. Your editors that used to be at Vogue or Elle or Harper's are now on Substack. That's the community that I'm cultivating.
Yeah. Okay, time for, we'll say 2 more questions. We're about at time. This next one's from Michelle, and that's for you, Allie, and that's, how do you stay focused on the most important tasks and not get bogged down in day-to-day distractions, especially as someone who's managing multiple different?
I'm like shifting in my chair because it's so hard. I would say that you have to be disciplined about having processes in place that do that for you on one hand, but we do priorities at the top of every week as a company, where all of us as teammates too, we need to make sure that our priorities are syncing up together. And so I'll look at all the priorities of the individual team, and then how does that roll up to the broader company priorities, and having really clear set KPIs, right? What are your goals for your numbers? And I come from a sales background. And so that was always what was so nice about it. It was so black and white. And obviously as a founder, it's not as black and white because there's a lot of intangibles that come up. but the KPIs really do help. And then whether it is, your revenue growth, or you need to grow your email list, or maybe part of it is your conversion rates, right? So those are sort of these very black and white factors. And then the other thing is creating filters based off of those for the activities and things that you do as a company. So I was recently approached for a partnership, and I so wanted to be like, yes, we're in for it, because it felt very aligned to where we want to go and what we want to do. But I was like, I had to take a step back and say, before we do that, we have to have very clear goals for the partnership. And in those goals, I know that I need to make money. I need to be utilizing any of my team resources towards a revenue driving activity, and that it also needs to be growing the brand and growing the awareness of the company. So if it doesn't check those boxes, then it's a no. And I think you just have to be super disciplined about making decisions that way.
Love it. Okay, final question. I know we're just over time, but Gina says, how can people utilize the 10th house to collaborate, build, and scale? I'm just going to combine that with my final question of what can founders expect to experience inside of the 10th house? And Allie, would love to have you close us out here.
Yeah. So a lot of it is dependent on you, because honestly, guys, we have so much inside of the 10th house that can almost be overwhelming. You don't have to do all of it. I think that's the one thing. It's like people will be like, but I can't do all of those things. That's the entire reason why we have a lot of different options, because some people choose to engage virtually. Some people might want to do in-person events. Some people might only be able to meet up 4 times a year or twice a year. And that's okay. But the more you utilize it, the more you are going to get out of it. We have things like community conversations where, say you're struggling with something in your business and you want to workshop through it. Most likely there's a lot of other founders on our platform who have been through something similar to that and already worked through it, or they're also working through it and they might be thinking about it differently. So it's sort of sharing frameworks with people, sharing how you make decisions. That can happen in our community conversations. We have industry specific huddles where you can get together and talk about things that are specific to your industry and challenges specific to your industry. We have spaces specific to your industry where you have a question about trying to find somebody who is a really great in enterprise sales, or you're trying to find a new email marketing agency and you're in consumer, then you can ask those questions in your specific spaces, and hopefully you'll get something within 24 hours. If you don't, we jump in as 10th house to try to help you get to those right resources. And then we have these amazing, amazing in-person events. I cannot stress enough how much I wish that I had this in building businesses, where you know that you're getting to talk to an expert. Some of these people are in M&A for major corporations that are acquiring all the beauty businesses. We have people that are heads of large funds that invest in companies just like yours. And so we've had people go to these events and actually get their lead investor. We don't promise that, but by showing up and being there and being willing to talk about your business, that's how these things are going to happen for you. So we're just trying to give you guys all the opportunities to be in position where you have the founder resources at your back. You have experts that we're bringing into the fold so that you can connect with them. You have people in your industry that you're able to network with. You have people in your market that you're able to network with. So it's really up to you on how you want to utilize it.
Absolutely. Very well said. I'm so happy that you all had time to chat with us today. I know there were questions that were in the chat that we didn't have time to get to. We have these conversations about once a quarter, and then inside of the community, I know Allie has community conversations where she answers questions and really goes deep into most businesses. And then also you could set up a one-on-one with either one of these ladies through the North, where we have amazing advisors, and we're actually bringing in some of those advisors for office hours within the 10th house. So really excited for our tech founders. We have a former CMO of Microsoft coming in to host a really amazing conversation about innovation and growth and marketing We have AI experts coming in, not only to help tech founders utilize AI, but people who are maybe not tech savvy and tech isn't a part of their business model. How can you leverage that to scale? So some really great conversations coming up that we're excited to continue having. But thank you everyone who was able to join us live. Hopefully we will see you soon inside the 10th house. Check out the link below to apply. Thank you, Rebecca, and thank you, Allie.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye. Thanks for joining us.
Bye.
Bye.